Today, I'm up over $81,000 day trading live. You can see it right here, the performance score I posted in my Discord, August 10th, 2026. And we absolutely capitalized off a beautiful trade today. If you're curious about the trade, here was the trade right here. It was a 1 minute gap short, and we took a beautiful short for a good gain. But before I talk about the trade specifically, let's talk about today overall. My bias coming into the PM session, why I thought about what I did, and what made me go short, and also what this right here is about. Well, first things first, skipped out on the AM session because I had a bit of a migraine in the morning, not bit, a pretty large migraine. It passed, then decided to go live at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we decided to take a trade. Well, let's hope. Price was pretty choppy today for the most part. How the hell did you capitalize on a trade? Well, first things first, I think in the morning, had I been on live, had I not had the migraine, and had I traded, I think at best the morning would have been a break even session for my model, right? So, I made money today, but I'm saying, right, if I traded AM, it would have been a break even session most likely. The reason I say this is because price did not move much. I see a lot of people on Twitter today who are red, good traders as well, who are red today off the opens price. I did think we saw a good opening range move, but we didn't see that full expansion that we usually see in good market conditions. So for me, coming into the PM session, which was around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I picked up on something, and that main thing being that price reclaimed back under lows after initially seeing a bullish opening range move reaction. So we came down here initially, taking out overnight lows, but then what you see price do is you see price come right back up after putting in those lows, therefore causing the bullish move back up. We then end up seeing a rebalance off a large 5 minute gap, where we then come back down and essentially trade lower. Once we reclaim back lower, I thought it was pretty fair to assume that price could potentially draw lower. And you happen to know there's a clear draw area in this hourly wick low, a large wick on the hourly time frame where I felt price could easily draw into a realistic area of interest with how kind of slow price was. And so for today's instance, I was bearish into the PM session. Again, after recognizing the opening range move, which was initially bullish, came all the way back down and we installed new lows, paired up with the fact that NQ initially wasn't even the more weaker asset, right? It was ES. We identified that ES was weaker whilst NQ was still weak as well, right? So kind of coming into the PM session, we identified that and we looked at the higher time frame look paired up with the lower time frame look, and more so importantly, just purely price today, right? Hourly gap, or excuse me, hourly internal draw in terms of this internal wick low paired up with this ES 4 hour gap, which we saw price eventually come down and trade into. And you see me mention that today, right? What do I say? The first thing I say for kind of our look coming to the session. So about 14 minutes after the session, or 14 minutes after the live began in our Discord, we said liking idea and continuation lower. NQ draw level 29564 looks clear. Yes, it's a 4 hour gap and it's coming close into that as well. So like as we mentioned, that hourly low draw in 29564 paired up with the 4 hour gap, which I wanted to see price tap into on ES because this 4 hour gap was the only gap in sight via higher time frame that was nice and displacive. Again, recognizing price and ES was initially weaker because if you pair the 5 minute, you can see that when we did occur and have our opening range move on ES was a lot less significant off the move back up as opposed to NQ, which you see a clear push back up initially. So I was kind of eyeing that, but then as we see price trade lower and lower, I was able to identify that there was almost no divergence at all. Comparing price in general between ES and NQ, we were seeing new lows being installed in relative pretty close, and we were seeing NQ actually displace a bit better in terms of the sequences. So one of the first ideas I had in mind here, after recognizing higher time frame and the opening range move, and the reaction off that, that my bias was bearish, and I wanted to see price draw into 29564, was I looked for a potential short entry. So now that we have draw bias, now that we have good identification of where price is going to lead into and what our sentiment is, now we simply look to be risk on by timing our entry. The entry model factor and the confirmation sequence in which we trade is the timing part of our trading. Remember, guys, we are scalpers. We trade high leverage in the market. So in that, what that means is we have to be able to time our entries because although you could have a specific bias, trading on the 1 minute time frame, trading on the 5 minute time frame, if your timing's not right, you could still get stopped out on a trade and still have your bias be correct. And this is what happened off the first trade had we taken this. This first idea here was a trade that looks like we potentially took. We did not. However, this is a trade I want to go over because not only are winners important, guys, but what's more important, in my opinion, that gets overlooked is the trades that you do not end up taking. So this trade idea here was a trade idea presented for potential short in play. That's that idea, potential entry a bit higher, where we looked for a 1 minute gap, initially looking to rebalance, but then we see price come back up, we see price invert, and then we come back down. As you guys know, with confirmation, one of the components to confirmation is the candle closure. We do require more displacement, obviously, coming to confirmation, but we had a candle closure. And some people in my chat today were like, Lanto, we technically confirmed. Why didn't you take this trade? Well, like we always talk about, you need to make sure all the boxes are checked off. And so for the confirmation sequence on this trade, it was not ideal, because what you end up seeing prior to the rejection candle is you see about 5 to 6 green candles in a row print up higher, violating the 1 minute gap, turning it into a bullish inversion fair value gap. We then see a rejection initially off the 1 minute time frame, but it's not a sequence where you see consistent engulfing price coming back down. It was one 1 minute candle. And you guys have to remember, within our system, we don't just purely trade a candle closure. That's not what confirmation is. Confirmation is a sequence leading up into the candle closure. And you could see for this trade right here, had we taken it through the natural precise close, which a lot of people would maybe prematurely take, we would have gotten stopped out a couple minutes later. And the reason we did not end up taking end up taking this trade, although the draw was clear, although the bias was clear, although price was clear on where it wanted to go, we did not get confirmation here. So we avoided it, and all the boxes were not checked off, and we avoided a potential loser. So instead of starting off the session at a -1R, we started off flat break even because we did not end up taking this trade. Then we had our second idea, and this second idea was a lot better of a take, not just through the entry gap, but also through the confirmation sequence as well. If we compare the second idea was an idea that we based off two gaps getting violated. So 1 minute bullish FEG turns into a bearish fair value gap with confirmation. 1 minute bullish FEG gets violated with confirmation. So what we were looking for here, after seeing price draw a bit higher, is we were looking for price to come down here and violate this 1 minute bullish fair value gap, turn it into a 1 minute bearish inversion fair value gap, and violate this 1 minute bullish inversion fair value gap and come back down lower. What's most important with this confirmation sequence, chat, which checked off the box, was it was not just one candle after seeing this place higher. We initially, on this trade right here that had we taken it, we saw price continuously trade up higher and higher through 5 and 6 consecutive green candles met by one sell candle. Here, what you see is you start to see price install lower highs, and you're starting to see price install new lows created within the relative range. So we see price come down here, and the most important thing is you see a good distribution sequence through the high, come back down in a very engulfing candle closure, which this candle convincingly tells you that we want to potentially draw back down lower and draw into our target now. Again, remember, confirmation is your timing set piece. It allows you to know when the market wants to go. Does it want to go now, or does it want to retrace higher first? And we retraced higher here. We then take our entry. We see price come back down here. We go break even stops off this 1 minute wick low right here. And then we end up seeing price immediately come back down and flush into take profit. You can see the idea posted here. You can see me say I am short. And you can see me say on break even, where we eventually came down here and smashed our take profit goal. A beautiful day, because today was not the best price, right? Price off the open was not trading the best. And reasonably, we've had 2 days this week which have been underwhelming for the most part, right? And we've been green both days. So very exceptional. And I hope this review kind of helps you guys understand the importance of following your system and following your rules and making sure all the boxes are checked off. Took a very good trade, and you can see the difference between what a winning trade looks like versus a losing trade, right? Both trades had similar concepts in terms of exact draw, similar ideas in terms of going break even with tighter stops in place, and we ended up seeing one trade pan and one did not, which we set out of. So good day overall. And with that being said, that's the review. Beautiful continuation model trade into draw once this low got ran and we got trailed out on the personal, and we realized that TP1, we knew, okay, liquidity was taken here. There's a potential where we could see a shift back up. If we do so, let it be. We're done. 1-0 mindset. Hope you guys enjoyed.